Giman, I just want to make sure. Are you getting enough air in there? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm okay.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the MP3 Cast's inaugural episode. I'm your host, Johnny, and with me today is TJ, aka Scaffo, and Patricio, also known as Spear Change, and last but certainly not least is Thaddeus. All right, so this being our first episode, I figure I should say the premise. Every week we're going to listen to a new album, one maybe we've listened to, maybe we haven't, but we're going to rotate who picks it. The first week is me, and we're all going to share our thoughts and have a good time discussing it. So the first album we're listening to is Discovery by Daft Punk, released in 2001. It's their second studio album. And we're going to go through the whole album track by track, and then at the end we'll go through and describe our overall thoughts on the album. All right. I'm Johnny, and I figure we should say our musical taste just to give you an idea of what our background is. I mostly listen to hip-hop. I don't have a very wide array of music I listen to. So I thought this would be a good way for me to branch out, discover some new genres I might like. Just find new music was my whole idea here. All right, Scaffo?
Unlike this uncultured individual, I have quite the vast palette. Anything from like indie folk, hip hop, metal, like EDM, you name it. There's always something I find that I like in any genre, and I'm always open to new ideas for music.
All right, Patricio?
Yeah, I come from a background of listening to rock music and alternative when I was young. And when I was about 12, I started writing music of my own. And I've grown as a rapper. So I'm mostly into hip-hop and rock and any sort of in-between with a little bit of metal. But I'm excited to learn new genres.
All right. And Thad?
I mean, listen to anything instrumental. Like chill beats or like classical music, stuff like that. Not too much into lyrics. I've been trying to branch out recently, but that's about it.
All right. Well, then, with that out of the way, let's get right into Discovery. So, the first song on the album is called One More Time. It's the intro track. And what are your guys' overall thoughts on it? Did you like it or did you not?
It's okay. It's bland, I think. It's not really that great an intro, in my opinion. It's an okay song, but it goes on a little too long and doesn't really get that sonically interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you, TJ. It was definitely the weakest song on the album for me.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Right?
I don't know about
Oh, yeah.
that.
It was,
really?
Well, no. Probably the last one was the weakest, actually. But this one was a close second.
Save that for when we get to it. So,
but yeah, when I first listened to it, I was like, oh, geez. I thought this was going to be indicative of the whole album. Like, oh, this is going to suck.
Well,
but
that being said, I think that it's, as far as an opening track goes, I may not like it as an opening track, but it is like a nice middle between the peaks and valleys that the album does end up reaching in various tracks.
I was not digging it at all.
I thought it was too long and repetitive. It would have been cut if it would have been better if it was cut down to a 2-minute track for like dancing in a club or a rave. I'm sure is how it's normally played, and they probably don't play the full thing if they do play it there. I will say though, there was a really cool part around the 2-minute 45-second mark where it drops down real quiet and then crescendos back up to the beat, which was great. But again, it's too long of a track for what it is. It's repetitive as hell.
I don't know if I agree with you guys. I think the bass line carries this really well. It gets you moving, and that's a theme of this whole album is it's dance music, you know? And this one really, it is a good intro track, I think, because of the way it gets you moving and it just engages you right away. I thought it was a good start, and I liked the way they played with the vocals and messed with the levels so that it's like instrumentation. They tweak the levels so that it hits with the bass. And
well,
it just
I feel like they do that better on other places in the album, though. I don't feel like it was executed that well here.
Yeah, I can see that, but I don't know. I just don't dislike it as much as you guys do.
All right. Well, it's still decent. Like,
and
as a track,
yeah,
it's okay. I just kind of wish it wasn't the intro track.
I guess there's our disagreement starting off right away.
Yeah, but
This is
I
gonna
will
be a
agree with
recurring
you,
theme.
Patricio. I liked the crescendo in the middle when it
That's
drops
something
down.
that's something I've noticed that they do really well,
Yeah.
like all over this album.
Yeah.
Sometimes
lot
it
of
takes
songs
too
have
long
that.
for them to hit that point, though.
Yeah, we'll get there, I'm sure.
All right, next track, Aerodynamic.
All right.
I really like the beginning of this track because it opens really ominous and it kind of sets you up expecting like something more like mellowed down and serious, but then it gets right into a funky beat and subverts your expectations.
Yeah, I love the guitar riff that they introduce early.
Oh, the guitar throughout the whole track is so good.
Yeah, it really shines.
It shines because those bells at the beginning get you hyped, and you're like, "Wow, this is a hype song." And then the guitar comes in, and that is just a wonderful change of pace from the last song. Honestly, it feels like it's becoming more of a fluid album rather than one repetitive track. It feels like they can do something more. I will say though, the second half of the song feels like a completely different one. When I was listening to it, I thought it was a different song.
Really?
So I didn't understand. Like I didn't feel that it was the same track.
I noticed that too. There was it's something that gets repeated on this album in a few different songs, but they isolate one part like they did in One More Time. They isolated the vocals for a bit there, but they isolate one part of the song and then fade in new like audio layers, and
Which feels like it should be a new song at that point.
Oh no,
almost.
I really like the breakdowns they do. Like that, this one was a great one. They do a lot of great breakdowns throughout the track.
yeah, I disagree that it felt like a different song after the breakdown. I think it faded in new parts, but it kept it interesting and fit with the previous half of the song.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that?
I enjoyed it. I was out there jamming when I was listening to this one. That's what piqued my interest in the album again. After the first song, I really wasn't feeling it, but Aerodynamic, that brought me back.
Yeah, it's definitely a spicy track.
All right, well, Digital Love is the next song, which
Oh boy, I hated how this song
hated this
opened.
track?
For the first half, it was bland, it was boring, I was not feeling it.
Wow, he took a different turn than I did here.
But
I thought it was...
like halfway through it gets good. Like the guitar solo towards the end, ooh, I am all about that, but the first half I can't get into it. It's not my thing.
I felt like
Okay, good.
it gave a warm summery vibe that just was like happy, It almost felt like a pop song you'd hear on the radio to me.
Going off of Johnny's point, I thought that it would have been better if there wasn't distortion on his voice. And at this point, I don't know who Daft Punk is, and I was like, oh, they actually have voices. Like, that's kind of funny. So if there was no distortion on it, it would have sounded better. And it kind of reminded me of like an Owl City song, Like,
yeah. I got
thought
that impression too.
Yeah.
I thought, Owl City's the one who does Fireflies.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this could be on the radio if they took out that damn distortion. Like, it didn't. I prefer clearer audio for singing tracks like this, personally.
Honestly, the distortion was the only thing that kept the vocals interesting, in my opinion. And yeah, I do agree. It feels like Owl City, but like I'm not really into them.
I liked the distortion too. I felt like it set the track apart from other radio pop songs, Gave it a
Exactly.
Daft Punk feel, kept it interesting, more so than detracted. You know what I mean? All right,
Yeah.
well. This song is so good. There's a reason there's a reason this song is still played all the time everywhere.
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
one of the best singles of the past 15 years. It's so good.
Yeah.
I was super surprised when I came across this one because I didn't even know they made that song.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I had no idea.
I saw it in the Wreck-It Ralph 2 movie or whatever trailer, and I was like, oh, I just listened to that the other day. I didn't know it was still being used.
Yeah.
When I heard it, I'm sure you did too, Thad. I thought of the Kanye song right away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
I know he sampled it from here, but really that one, to me, I'm going to disagree with TJ here. I think Kanye's version is better as an instrumental by far.
Whoa.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
ooh,
Okay.
there's a lot to unpack there, my friend. So,
I can explain if you like.
well, I guess it comes to a debate whether or not the originality of the first product is more valuable. Because obviously Kanye was able to just build off of the track that already existed, which, helps.
I'm going to give it points for originality. Here's my thing, though. There are lots of, especially with hip-hop music, there's lots of people who sample the best parts of other songs. And the best part of this song, to me, was the vocals. They just sounded on point, clean. They sounded like a musical instrument of their own, even with the distortion. And
Yeah,
that
the
was the best
vocals
part to
definitely
me.
carry the track. I'm not going to argue with that.
Definitely. The part I didn't like was the annoying cowbell in the background. Whatever.
Huh.
I hated that, honestly. It killed it for me, and it made it feel like a cheap beat, like a cheap background noise. I would have preferred a heavier bass than that. And also, in the last minute of the track, the song completely changes around again like it did before in one of the previous tracks. I didn't like that either. But again,
No,
the
I
vocals are
disagree.
the
That
best for me.
breakdown is so good. What do you mean?
The breakdown is not an entirely different song. They're still using the core vocals that carried the entire rest of the
course.
track that you liked, and they play
Which is
with
the
it
best
so
part of
well.
it,
It evolves and it's interesting throughout the entire song. It keeps you engaged with the song, and I don't want it to end when it does. You know what I mean? It just
How long of a song was it? It was 3 minutes 44 seconds. Okay, so it was their normal length of song, or like it was a more normal length than they do on this album. They go pretty long sometimes. So yeah, I could see it not wanting to end as much.
Well, so you commented on the bass. You weren't really into that like rubbery sort of bass.
it was so funky.
Yeah, dude.
I loved
it's really
it.
bouncy.
I like it in certain contexts, but honestly, I think my predisposition of knowing Kanye's version of it is what killed it for me. If I didn't know his version first, I might have been more fine with it. But the thing is, when I hear the vocals on that, I think of his song, and I think of a more aggressive track. So when I hear it as more of a funky bass line, it kind of messes with me. I'm thinking like this should be a different way. It feels like this is the remix to his song, which I know it isn't, and I give them points for originality, but that's just where my mind space goes with it.
Let's
Does that make sense?
Interesting.
Let's take a second for clarity. Who here has listened to the Kanye song? I have. I was familiar with that long before I was familiar with the original version.
I have, but I heard it after I had heard this version of it.
That
I was familiar with the Kanye one as well.
okay.
Yeah, and I of course was, because I spoke my opinion on it.
Yeah.
So wait, was I the only one who knew this song before the Kanye one?
Probably.
Yeah, it seems that way.
That's
Yeah.
interesting, because it was played like everywhere when I was in like school.
Yeah, but I
Everyone
heard
one of
knew
those-
that
that
song.
Kanye song was super popular. That's one of his most
yeah.
popular singles, up there with Power.
Definitely.
I remember being really young, just like I was still on Rhapsody back then. If you guys know what that was.
Oh my God.
That was like the top song, and it would just
Right.
show up, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll listen to it. And that's kind of like one of the only Kanye songs I liked for a long time.
Wow. Yeah, well, I'm a huge Kanye stan. I love almost all of his music, and even I have to say this version is better than Kanye's. Kanye's is good, but just feels more cohesive. Like, you can tell this is what the song initially was. You know what I mean? I understand the aggression in the Kanye version, but I prefer the more funky dance tune that you get on this.
Yeah, it feels more iconic in my opinion.
I agree with that. And the vocals on it are so good. They're punchy, and I love the way they because they do in a lot of songs, like I've said, they bring it down to simplicity, then fade in new parts of the song. But they do that with the vocals here, where they take specific words in the first minute to 2 minutes, where they take the specific words and separate them into different verses almost. And then it all grows to crescendo and combines all the words together. And it's moving so fast at that point.
Definitely the best part for me. That definitely was it.
But I feel like the vocals build upon the foundation that was made with the bass line, the funky bass, and all the instrumental backing. I don't feel like on its own the vocals would be... I don't feel like... They do shine, but they're not as set apart from the rest of the track as I think you're making it out to be, where it's the only good thing. I think it's... The whole track is fantastic.
All right, then. I see your point.
All right, well, moving on from there, the next track is Crescendos. Am I saying that right? I think I am.
Probably. So, this is a really, basic nitpick that really hampers my enjoyment of this song. And it's 100% purely because the synths, when they're lower, the melody synths, they feel wet and gross in my ear. The rest of the song I like, agree. But the wet synths really distract me from the rest of the track.
I have to 100% agree. And I thought that they sounded amateurish in the sense that it sounds like I would pick up a keyboard and play with it and kind of make what this sounded like. And I'm not criticizing their artistic vision for it. It just didn't, it felt gross. Like, it didn't feel clean. It felt really distorted in a bad way. And it kind of ruined a lot of the song for me.
I don't know about that. I'm
no,
a fan.
I took it a step further than you. But
yeah,
for me, that was the main killer.
Yeah, only those synths are my problem. I like the melody. The melody feels nice. The breakdown is, once again, spectacular. But the synths are just too distracting.
I felt like this song was stagnant more than any of the others on the album almost. It didn't feel like there was a lot going on with it. There were some interesting parts of it, like the way they have... It sounds like it's continually getting higher pitched. It's like that musical illusion, like Mario 64. There's a part where you're running upstairs to Bowser, and if you haven't unlocked it, it's playing this progression that just sounds like it's getting higher even though it's not.
That's actually... that's a really good comparison. I like that a lot.
But it reminded me of that, but I don't think it relied on that too much. That was like the only notable... It was like the musical standout, but it wasn't that interesting to me. And the song got boring by the time it was over. Yeah,
I can kind of agree. I don't know, the little crescendo at the end kind of does help its image. Because there's this really nice, it compared to all their other, crescendos, it's really short, but it sticks out in my memory, and since it's right at the end, it kind of helps paint the track a little better in my mind.
Alright. What about you, Thed?
I enjoyed it. I didn't really have a problem with it, per se.
Did you like the synth line? Did you have an issue with that?
No, not really.
Interesting, because I noticed that the synths were pretty weak to me. They weren't interesting.
Yeah.
Just... Alright, well, the next track is a pretty short one. It's Night Vision.
Ooh. This
Easily
track,
my favorite.
I'm a fan of Night Vision. I like how chilled out and slow paced it is, and it does not overstay its welcome. If it went on for 3.5 minutes, I probably would not like it as much as I do.
Really, it felt more like an intermission.
Yep, I noticed
from
that
all
as well.
the
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly, it's a nice wind down,
which was really nice. I was not expecting that whatsoever.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Would you
a
have liked
really
it if it
nice
was
wind
long?
down after all the really hype tracks.
I think it could have been a bit longer. the 1 minute mark was what was it like? How long was it?
It was a
minute 44.
Minute 40,
I think.
yeah. Maybe just stretch it to maybe like 2 minutes, 2:10. But overall, I thought it was really good.
I think they really nailed the timing, actually. I thought it ended right when it needs to.
I agree with that. I think it builds a nice ambiance and really mellows you out after almost every track in the album so far has been like a dance banger. When it's nice to have that little almost 2 minutes of just chill.
I gotta agree with Thad here, though, that I think it should be a little longer just because, one, it's my favorite song on the entire album.
Wow.
But, yeah, it definitely is. Just because it's more my style of song. It's more chill, but also the synths sounded beautiful. They sounded like they were imitating string instruments. The heartbeat as a form of drums is one of my favorite effects when people use it. And the piano was beautiful as well. I just thought it was too short for how lovely and pretty and, you know, the ambience of the song. I just wish it would have gone a little longer. I think in terms of the album, though, it fit where it was supposed to. I agree with that. It was more like an intermission than anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next track on the album is Superheroes.
This bass line, dude. I am a fan of this bass line. It's really, it really drives the track forward throughout the entirety of it.
I didn't notice anything too special about the bass line, actually. I did notice that the vocal sample with the Something's in the Air goes well with the bass line, but I didn't notice anything about the bass line itself that was too spectacular.
Yeah, I felt more, I guess, indifferent towards this one. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't really outstanding. It didn't really stick out much to me.
I think the reason the bass line is so driving in my mind right now is because it's a lot more punchy than the rest of the bass lines in the album thus far. That being said...
You mean just that upbeat bass the whole time? Like the bass drum?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Never mind.
Okay. That being said, the first half of the track, it's decent. The bass is the only thing that I really picked out. The vocals, they're okay. The second half of the song is just better than the first half.
I disagree with you there, friend.
Really?
I think the second half is worse because those same wet synth sounds that sound like laser beams came back. And I thought I was done with it on Crescendos, and then here it comes again, molesting my ear.
I didn't really get that sense from these synths, not at all.
I didn't like them. But I agree with the bass line. I just thought the song was very repetitive and honestly kind of forgettable.
I agree that it might have been forgettable, but I liked the laser sounds that you took issue with. I thought they... Because I feel like this song, I got a sense of it rising, not the same way Crescendos is, where it's in pitch, but just the ambience feels like you're getting higher into the atmosphere and then you get into space almost, is the sense I got.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And then the lasers give it that sci-fi vibe. You go from a more grounded to eventually sci-fi, futuristic sound, and I like that. But I do think it was a forgettable song that doesn't stick out too well on the album, doesn't do a lot of interesting things.
Interesting.
All right. Well, next song is High Life, which
I hated this song. I'm going to come on and say it. I might get some flack for it.
Oh, really?
It was completely repetitive, and I found it the least enjoyable track, probably of any of them, minus some gripes later on.
Yeah.
It was just repetitive, annoying. There's no point listening to it. It's
I
the
agree.
Same loop the whole time.
I agree that this one's really repetitive and boring. The vocal sample and just all of the instrumentation is repeated throughout the whole thing. It doesn't get more interesting than the first 20 seconds of the track.
You guys are agreeing with me a lot more than I thought you would.
Oh, dude. No, don't worry. So I completely disagree with both of you.
Oh,
There it
there
is.
he is. We found him.
You're wrong. That's all there is to it. So, first of all, the sample. I really like this sample. I'm a fan of the sample. And one little side note, this doesn't really affect my enjoyment, but there's this, like, I think they're scratching guitar strings, and that's one of the samples they use. And I picked that out because it's really neat. I think it's really well used. But also the repetitiveness, yeah, it's repetitive, but it's sort of like trance-like, and I'm into that. I think that's pretty cool.
Johnny?
That's
and
me.
Thad?
I thought it was okay. Just another one that didn't really pop out that much.
Like the last one?
Yeah, pretty much.
I feel like right after Night Vision and Superheroes, and like I feel like this sort of repetitive song was pretty well placed in the context of the album. I don't really.
Would you listen to it regularly? Both Thad and Scaffo here. Would either of you listen? Like, would you go out of your way on your Spotify to play this song?
I mean,
Well-
I put it in like a playlist, and if it happens to be on there when I put it on shuffle, I wouldn't skip it.
You wouldn't skip it?
No, I wouldn't skip it.
You
I'd
wouldn't,
let it play.
You wouldn't just stop and be like, I'm not listening
No,
to this song.
no. I didn't dislike it or anything. I thought it was good.
See, I don't know, because I don't really. There's a lot of songs on this album that I don't really think I would put on a playlist per se. I do like them in the context of the album, though.
All right, well, the next song, which was a standout for me, was Something About Us.
I loved it too, man.
I really like the R&B feel. It's suave, it's slower than most of the other songs on the album, and it's just really good.
I'll save mine for last. Patricio, how you feeling?
Oh, the cynic. Okay. I actually, surprisingly, really did like the song. I thought it was a funky and chill beat to relax to. The vocals were... I don't think they were sampled. I think they were theirs. They were very calming. This would be a good song to listen to if you're having like a really bad day or you're stressed out. This would be one of those songs that like you want to put on to calm yourself a little bit. I thought it was a really, really well-placed song. The length was fine. I had no issues with it, actually.
Yeah, and going on the vocals, this was one of the first notable examples of vocals that felt completely natural, almost like live performance, as opposed to the roboticized and distorted electronic vocals they were using more as instrumentation rather than just singing on the other albums in the track. And I thought
therefore it's objectively worse.
there.
I do not like the vocals on this track. I really like the bass line. It's got a really nice feel to it. The vocals take me out of it.
What?
Really?
I don't feel like they. I feel like they do not mesh with the rest of the track at all.
That's surprising.
Why is that?
I'm not exactly sure. It just doesn't feel right. Also, I'm sure it doesn't help that I'm not really into the voice on the track.
Okay. I
But-
can see that.
I feel like you killed Thad's favorite song here.
Killed it? I don't know. But it is just objectively worse because the vocals are on it.
I disagree completely. I think the vocals add a lot to this. It goes well with it. I think it feels like something it really stands apart from the rest of the album because it feels like something you could hear at not a club, but like a jazz setting, like a jazz bar or something like that. The vocals go so well with the bass line and the subtle drums that I don't know how you could say that because they're not electronic style vocals.
Just for anyone listening, it's because Scafo has really bad opinions. That's how he.
Yeah, okay.
You could say that.
Just delete the vocals. It's a better track.
No.
No. Anyway, I think we should move on before I fight this kid.
All right. Well, the next song is Voyager.
Oh boy, I love this track.
Really?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
The only part that I can say I even enjoyed about it was near the end. That's where it picks up for me and starts getting tolerable, I guess. But
You didn't like it at all?
no,
I think
it was a little.
Go ahead.
Go on, man.
So, I think the name Voyager really, really fits the theme of the track. It does feel like some sort of grand voyage, and yet by the end you feel like you have reached a destination. There's a journey in this song, and I really like that sort of vibe it gives.
Going off of that, I'm actually going to agree with you a little more than Thad this time. I thought that the bass line was strong, the song was well recorded, and the part that made it feel like that adventure was the left to right pan that I didn't pick up on my first time. I had to listen to it again. They have this left and right like switching of synth audio, and it's 100% in each ear, I am pretty sure of. So it really gives you a spatial awareness, and if you're using headphones, it's harder to catch than if you're in a car or on your speakers. And that's really what brought it up for me. Although I will say the song was forgettable, but I don't think the point of it was to make a stand on the album. I think it's just kind of there. I will agree with that, though. It picks up way more at the end than it does throughout the whole thing.
Go ahead.
Aside from the bass line, there wasn't much that I really noticed about this album. I did only listen to the album with headphones. I'd never listened to it with speakers around me, but I never noticed that. I noticed a subtle change in which ear it was playing through, but never 100% in one ear, like you're saying. But aside from the bass line, this song was pretty forgettable for me. Didn't leave much of an impression.
That's interesting. Now that you mention it, Patricio, yeah, I do realize that's one of the main reasons that I got that sort of feeling from this. A special note I want to point out, the breakdown towards the end, when it like slows down and mellows out, and it's sort of like you get this feeling of like, you're losing drive, and you're starting to become aimless. But as it sort of like you get inspired as the crescendo happens, and by the end you're returning to this trip with newfound vigor, and you're gonna just go and get to where you need to go. Like I said, the theme on this track shines through crystal clear, and I love it.
Feels like you were sleeping when you were listening to this.
He's just dreaming the whole time.
I appreciate that. Okay.
All right, well, then the next song is Veridis Quo.
Verdi Quo? I don't know if it's Veridis. Is that really how you say it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's in Latin, and I don't speak Latin.
Verdi Quo.
Very cool.
Okay.
So I really felt like this was a main town theme in an RPG.
I got that impression.
Same.
Like the simple keyboard to start the song with, that simple, like, they almost use it more as a percussion instrument than playing chords or anything.
Yeah, they
and
really
it just
do.
really harkens back to NES and Super Nintendo when they were limited with the audio chip to what sounds they could use, and they had to work with that to make interesting music. And I definitely agree with you on that takeaway.
Yeah, this was by far my favorite track on this album.
Yeah, I feel
Really?
like if it weren't for my sort of nostalgia for that sort of vibe, I can see people not liking it because it does go a little long. But I just have too much wrapped up in that sort of feeling, so it's great. I love it.
I didn't get that at first, but now that you say it, it kind of reminds me of when I would play RuneScape. That sounds like something that would be in the background.
Yeah, there you go.
So some sort of RPG, but like an early RPG, not like the ones we have today.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I didn't get that at all at first. You guys have blown my mind here. But as a song, I actually took an issue with it because I felt like the instruments for the first half did not fit together. It felt like they were two separate, unrelated tracks that were thrown together, and not in necessarily a negative way. It just didn't feel like on tempo. It felt off. It felt weird until they added the fast-paced guitar, which in that case, when they did, it felt like the whole track meshed together much better. It needed some sort of focal point. But when they were just playing the two other tracks, I did not feel it at all. But listening to it again, it definitely does sound like an RPG track. I would listen to it in a game.
All right, well, I also like those keys they start out with are a great way to start the song and really set the mood for the rest of it. But then I also like how they add stuff on slowly to build up the song, and then eventually the keys just disappear and allow those other parts that maybe you haven't been as focused on really get a chance to shine on the song too. But, all right, so now another more experimental song, I would say, Short Circuit.
Thoughts, everyone?
I really like this song. I like how it starts out really fast and it gets you in there right away. And then, of course, that ending where they take the bass line that's a little bit distorted, but then it starts wearing down and getting like artifacted is so cool to me. I've never heard anything like that used in a song, really, and it really...
Yeah, I actually didn't like that ending part.
Really?
But I'm opposite of you. I was fine with the rest of it. I mean, I don't have a like or dislike of the song. It's just there. It's similar to like an 80s dance track to me. Like, and I feel like it would probably sound a lot better if you were taking psychedelic drugs. I'm not saying you should go out and do that. I'm saying, but like, it's one of those songs they would put in like a psychedelic music video. And I don't have a problem with it, but I also don't like it.
I don't know. I feel like that's dangerous, especially with the like sort of off-kilter chords that, you know, slowly artifact over time. That could be real scary.
I feel like one of us should experiment with that.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Smile. Okay.
We're joking. This is sarcasm.
But yeah, this track is great. The beginning, I wasn't as into the beginning as you were, Johnny. It was decent, but the track really, really just gets better and better and better the longer you listen to it. It's just, it feels spectacular. Thad, what do you think?
I thought it was okay. Like, the beginning part really didn't stand out that much to me, and then the ending was just god-awful.
Really?
You didn't like the
ending?
ending?
I would have to cut that off when it gets near the ending, man.
Just
that was
cut
just
at the end. The last.
I did not enjoy the sounds I was hearing. And I get it does fit well with like what they were going for. I understand that, but I didn't enjoy it whatsoever.
How does it feel to be wrong?
Very nice.
I agree with that on that one.
Do you know what it was about the way it artifacted that you didn't like?
I don't know, man. I just didn't like the sounds. It just...
I think what
I
it
guess
was...
bothered me, maybe?
I don't think that's entirely against what they were trying to do. I do think it was meant to be...
Yeah, so, yeah, I would have to cut it off near the end, man.
It's so distorted. It feels like they took the volume, turned it up to 300%, and then re-recorded it. And to me, that's like...
Yeah, it reminded me...
It doesn't sound good.
There's this video on YouTube. I can't remember what it was. I might try and find it. But it's a short, like, 10-second clip of a guy talking to a camera. And he kept uploading it to YouTube, downloading it, and re-uploading it.
There you go. That's basically what it sounded like.
Gets more and more compressed and distorted, and I loved it. It's like...
Should have used a WAV file.
It's way ahead of its time, though, I think. I don't... In 2001.
Yeah, when was this? 2001? Oh.
Yeah.
See, I'm not putting this in any context of the time, so I guess that is.
But
But
2001
even
was a long time ago.
even like today, I would this. You were asking about playlists earlier. I would totally put this on a playlist.
I agree with that.
I would listen to this in isolation. It's a spectacular track.
All right, well, the next song is Face to Face.
Yep.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, me too.
This is a song I would play over and over again. It was amazing.
What was amazing about it?
Honestly, don't know, man. I was just in a trance at that point, just listening to it, having the music wash over me.
Those vocals were clean.
Yeah.
They're the cleanest
Yeah.
on the album.
Yeah.
Like, no distortion, nothing. It sounds like Bruno Mars is like singing that.
And I'm actually cool with the vocals here. I feel like they aren't all over the place. Like, I'm not a fan of when this album lets the vocals take center stage. But yeah, the vocals are used really well on this track, and everything about the track fits together perfectly. Everything's well balanced. No one thing in particular carries the entire track. Everything works well together, and it feels like the most balanced track on the album because of it.
Go ahead.
I felt like the vocals, this was the only song on the album where I can say I felt like the vocals were guiding the song more so than the vocals were just another instrument in the rest of the song. You know what I mean? They stood out really well, which makes it interesting to me that you liked the vocals regardless of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't really get that sort of sense.
You can definitely hear where it's like, this sounds like a more normally structured song where it's got the instrumentation at the beginning, then it's got, like it's like a bridge, and then it's got the verse and then the chorus, which the chorus isn't really a chorus. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
But it feels like that's the chorus. And then everything drops out just so the vocals can shine again. And like, this is the second time, I think, next to the second song in the album, you hear his voice actually get to shine. And he has a really great voice. I wish they would have used it more throughout the album or a little sooner. It's very well placed here. It's great.
Yeah. And I also like how this ties into the rest of the songs. I have trouble finding an overall narrative of this album, but then the songs where there's singing, there is an obvious... He's obviously talking about a relationship.
They like pull the album back together. And when the whole track is instrumentation, it's kind of hard to find out what it's about until they give. But the words they speak hold more weight than when they don't use them as much.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
Interesting.
I felt like this really tied in well to the narrative they were talking about.
I kind of feel like a lot of the instrumental only tracks on this album do really well at telling a story and conveying a theme. So it's interesting that you guys don't really get that sense, and you feel like the lyrics in the album need to kind of tie things together.
I'm a lyrical person.
Yeah, so am I. Like I said, I mostly listen to hip hop and rap music, and I love dissecting the lyrics and like the poetry of rap music. So I find it easier for myself to find meaning in songs with lyrics. I think that's a pretty common
It's less
thing.
of an emotion, and it's more... I guess it really just ties into, do you feel the music or do you listen to the music? And it honestly, sometimes it can be both. Sometimes it's either or. I feel like this album is for people who are more on the side of, I feel the music. This is for people who like to dance. This is for people who like to go to clubs. People who like to listen to music while they're working out to get hyped up, rather than people like me who listen to the music and say, what's this about? How does this relate to my life and society? I think it's just two different schools of thought here.
Yeah, that's pretty well put. I definitely am more in the camp of feeling the music.
Okay, now the
Last song.
The last song, the apparently controversial from the way you guys have hinted at it, Too Long.
Oh boy, okay.
The name is fitting.
Yeah,
I disagree.
definitely.
Oh, I love this song.
Alright, Johnny, say your piece. Let's hear it.
Yeah, you gotta go first. We're gonna bully you.
Okay, so I love the way it starts with the natural, almost a cappella. It's not a cappella because there's a bass line in the background, but I love those vocals, the way they start off, and then they keep evolving throughout the song. They fade in and out to different phrases, and it's love the way they layer the voice on top of itself to give it like that a cappella flair that I really like. And the bass line has a subtle funk to it. It's not too out there like some of the other tracks with the synths and where it gets really funky and disco-y, but I really like the bass on this one and how it starts off slow, and it really takes its whole 10 minutes to build up slowly and get better and better and better. And then especially at the halfway point, those original a cappella vocals that I really liked, they disappear completely. And his voice is used as basically another instrument at that point. It's less the star of the show, and I feel like that really adds to the effect of the instrumentation on this track. And it, despite being a 10-minute song, I never got bored while listening to it. I listened to the album 5 times, and every time through, I did not get bored of this song. It kept me engaged through the whole thing, and
All right.
I didn't want to stop.
I'm gonna
listening.
go last here.
I hear what you're saying, but delete the first 5 minutes of the song.
Yeah, you're right.
I love the first 5 minutes. I think the guy has a great voice, and that build-up helps it. It builds anticipation for the drop at the 5-minute point. I don't think the song would
anticipate it that long, though, dude.
See, I feel like they could have done this more effectively if that like build-up was like 2 minutes, not 5. We don't need that much. It doesn't. It's not good. The vocals I didn't like. Once the bass kicks in, it really helps. But there's like a minute of just the vocals at the beginning, and that drags. I thought it was like, I was like, how long has this track been going the first time I was listening to it? And it was a minute. I was blown away.
I didn't think how long has this track been going my first time listening to it until I was probably about 7 minutes through. That whole 5 minutes at the start, I never once started wondering when it was going to evolve. I did in the sense that I knew it would drop at some point, and I was anticipating that, but not in so much as I was counting down the seconds, like, okay, looking at my watch, when is this going to drop? When is this going to get interesting? Because I feel like those vocals were spot on. They were really good to me.
Okay, but you're wrong. Thad, how do you
Can't just
feel?
say people are wrong.
Yeah, you can. He just did.
What about you,
I'm
Thad?
going last. Go ahead. Yeah, you go with that.
Oh,
going last.
I'm pretty sure I didn't like it at all.
Not
Way too long.
all right.
As the name
Was there any
Yeah, as the name
specific part
suggests.
that you liked though?
Probably part where he just started singing and there was like no instrumentation at all. I was like, oh my god.
So the start,
Yeah.
you liked that?
And then no, I didn't.
Oh, because
And from then on, it was just downhill. From I
So it
didn't
just
really,
started off
you think
bad
it
and
just
worse.
gets worse.
Yeah,
So-
I didn't like anything about it.
Oh, I think the last 5 minutes are spectacular as a closing track.
By that point, I was so out of the song. I just wanted it to end.
Oh,
If it
I
started
see.
at that 5-minute mark, would you guys have liked it more?
Yes, I would
No.
think I'd probably enjoyed it a lot
I would
more,
definitely,
but
100%.
No, I feel like it
Doug
wouldn't
says
stand
no.
out hardly at all from the rest of the songs on the album. It would just be another just song on the album.
But it
you know?
stands out for all the wrong reasons.
No, I disagree. I think it takes what all these songs pretty much have a crescendo point where they fade out and then fade back in, getting
Yep.
louder. But I feel like this evolved on that, took it, and really experimented and played with it, and it worked so well to me. I don't know
Not
how
all
you guys hate it
experiments
so
are a
much.
success. I don't blame
I
them.
agree. I disagree. Not all experiments are success, but this one was a success. I think
I agree and disagree with each of you, actually. I thought the vocals and harmonization at the start were the best part. It was quiet, calm, and I agree with TJ. Once it hit that minute mark, I'm like, how long has this been going? I would have been fine with it, though, if they cut off the last 5 minutes. This is where TJ will disagree with me a lot. I didn't like the last 5 minutes of it. That repetitive, same vocal track played repeatedly got to me, and I forced myself to listen to it. I did not want to, though. I would have been better if the last 5 minutes were gone. They left the first 5 minutes, and even if they shortened that a little bit, But as a 10-minute song, I can't see myself ever picking this track up when I'm just sitting here or when I'm working or anything and listening to it.
Well, I don't feel like this
can't do
was
that.
made in the context of anything but the closing track of this specific album.
So you think it has to be listened to as the last song of this album for it to work?
100%.
I don't
Maybe
know.
if it was the last 5 minutes of the song, I can see it maybe being standalone, but seeing as it's 10 minutes and there's that long build-up, 100% needs to be listened to in the context of the album.
They even say in the title it's too long. They already know.
I think aside from Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, this is the song I'm most likely to listen to outside of the album.
Interesting.
I think it works really well as a standalone and a summation of the whole album. It really, like, everything I liked about this whole album shows up in that song.
I guess that's kind of why it's probably the 10 minutes, though, is to give you a little bit of everything. I mean, there's the vocals in there for sure. It's funky. It's also, it calms down quite a bit. A lot of synth, a lot of bass.
Like I said, it is a good closing track. I would just like it better if they cut off the first 5 minutes.
All right.
Okay, well, now let's
That's
get
the
to
album.
Yeah. Let's get to overall impressions of the album and what you guys thought.
I'll go last again on this one.
All right, I'll lead the charge. The vocals are not their strong suit. Aside from a few notable exceptions, I did not overall like the vocals on this album.
I think that, just to chime in real quick,
Go ahead.
I think the vocals really did a good job of standing out on their own, right? I think they were an interesting sound that you don't often hear in most music, which fit with this because it's more of an experimental album, you know? It's not...
Yeah,
They
and
didn't
most of
just
the
use
time
cookie-cutter
they're
vocals, and they stood out well on all the albums they appeared on and really tied the tracks together, I felt like.
But most of the time, the experimental vocals are the ones that I liked. The really bland, poppy sort of ones are usually the ones that I don't know, I would prefer them just to not exist on the album.
All right,
Also,
well, what else?
The beginning isn't exactly that strong. Once it gets to Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, the album it's a nice ride with great peaks and valleys throughout the entire experience. But the beginning takes a little bit to kickstart, I think.
The whole album? You say talking about like
Yeah,
it took a while
just in
to
the
get
context
into the
of
album?
Not really a while. It's only like a handful of songs. I really like Aerodynamic, but One More Time and Digital Love surrounding it kind of makes it like falter a little bit within the first bit of the album. It's great past Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, even if I'm not really into some of the tracks in there. Also, just lastly, some of the songs I feel like did outstay their welcome a little bit. It was never that big an issue aside from the first 5 minutes of Too Long, but I would like a couple of the tracks to be trimmed down just a tad.
All right, Johnny, your thoughts?
I felt like the whole album was really good. I struggled to find cohesion in the overall project. It felt like a collection of songs to me, almost
Like
more,
a mixtape?
Not like a mixtape, just like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just
Like maybe like songs that they recorded at different times, at different time periods, and put more together and tried to force together?
yeah,
Possibly.
just like they made a bunch of songs and were like, well, these ones are good. Let's put them together on an album. But
That's interesting. I completely disagree. I think that because of how well structured the like high points and low points of the rhythms, and the even the order of the tracks, they work really well together, and it does have a very nice flow that you can follow, at least in my opinion.
I think that's more just my bias towards lyrical music, because I don't have a lot of experience listening to music that doesn't rely on lyrics. So I think that's the reason I picked this album, is because I want to branch out more. So I wanted to listen to an album closely over and over and see if I can connect to that the same way I do lyrical music. And with this one, I will say I think it falls a little short. But I do think the album has some really great songs on it that shine. But overall, as a project, it's tough for me to connect to it the same way I do my favorite albums.
All right. Thad, your thoughts?
I could see myself listening to this album again. I enjoy most of the songs on there, besides like 2 duds for me. Yeah, I can definitely see myself listening to it again.
But would you put it in your regular rotation of music? Because it seemed like a lot of the songs for you were just meh. They were all right, I guess. So would you really want to listen to this often, or would you just not be opposed to listening to it?
Probably not often. If I don't know, if I'm feeling it, I'd probably put it on, but yeah, I don't think I'd put it in my regular rotation at all.
All right.
Besides some few songs I'd probably take from there, but as a whole, nah.
I'd probably take a couple of songs myself out of there. I felt like I enjoyed it almost in terms of every other song. And not necessarily in the order of, yes, this song, no, this song, but it felt like I liked half the songs, and even of those half, I only liked parts of those. But there were a couple on there that I would probably take and leave in my Spotify and get rid of the rest. And it felt like a really long album for it actually not being that long. I think it clocks in at 1 hour and 9 minutes, which isn't that bad for an album. It doesn't overstay too long. But it just felt like a long album to listen to. And I will say, though, on my second listen through, it was much better than my first listen through.
Oh, I don't think it felt long at all. I don't know. I feel like it really flows well together, and that really helps it not feel too long, even if individually some tracks do feel a bit long.
I wonder if that could be just recency bias because of, in his opinion, the album ends on a song that outstays its welcome. I wonder if maybe that had an impact on his overall view of the album, just because
Very
he
well
had
could
to sit through that at the end.
10 minutes for a single song of it not changing, to me, is...
It does change. It
it's
changes
tiring.
So much. It evolves
It doesn't,
all the way through.
to me, it doesn't change. It feels the same.
It definitely does change.
You can't
I
just
agree.
yell wrong.
But you are. I could say you're wrong when you're wrong.
See, it definitely does change, and I think it is interesting that I liked the last half of that track, and therefore I think as a closing track, it's good. There are elements from the first part that I liked, but because that didn't, taper out at the end and make me feel kind of bad about the finish, the track overall feels better to me. So probably because it's inverted for Patricio, that might be why it just overall doesn't feel so good.
All right, well, let's go through it and list your 3 favorite songs on the album, and then any songs you don't like.
I was not expecting this.
All right,
Well,
I got
You
mine.
can go last then. All right, go
Okay.
ahead.
So, number 1, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, 100%. It's amazing. Aerodynamic, probably number 2. That has really high peaks and really low valleys with the tone, and I really appreciate that. And last, definitely Short Circuit. The sort of deconstruction and artifacting of the everything in the track towards the end of the song just feels great. I love the sort of sensation I get from that.
All right. My favorite songs were Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Has to be number 1, of course. That song is so good. Then probably Too Long is my second favorite song on the album. I'm a really big fan of that one. And then Something About Us would probably be... Did I already say that one?
Nope.
Okay. Something About Us would round out my top 3. I really like the R&B fusion with the electronic sound in that song. And then
I'd have to go with... Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
And then my least favorite would probably be... It's either Crescendolls or High Life. I can't decide.
We're sharing least favorites too?
Okay. Did I skip over you for that?
I didn't know. Okay. My least favorite track would probably be... Yeah, I'd say Digital Love. The only thing that really stood out to me was the guitar solo towards the end. Aside from that, I'm not feeling that track.
All right.
All right.
Mine's would probably be Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, obviously. Face to Face and Virtus Q or Quo. Where the hell you say that?
Yeah, that was a
never
close
figure out
4
how to
for
say
me.
that.
Yeah.
And your least favorite?
Oh, least favorite? Probably Too Long.
Fight Johnny.
It's so bad, dude.
No, you're
All right. Anyway, I'm gonna be the odd man out. I guess it's indicative of how it's always gonna be. Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger is not on there for me. First is Night Vision, just because of I explained. I thought it was a beautiful piece.
Definitely is.
Second would be Face to Face. I loved hearing his actual vocals, and that's a song like you could sing to. And then lastly would actually be Digital Love, just because, again, vocals are actually present on that track. Least favorite isn't Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, though. Least favorite is also Too Long. And it's just it's too long. That's my main complaint. It's too long.
All right, well, that was Discovery by Daft Punk. Now you know what we all thought. So next week, we'll be listening to another album. This one will be picked by Scaffo. So what are we listening to?
We are going to be listening to a very classic in the indie folk genre. It is Fleet Fox's self-titled album.
All right.
Has anyone here besides
No.
Scaffo listened?
Nope.
I'm speaking for everyone. Who hasn't heard of that?
Yeah, no one. Okay. Any little bit of exposure to folk music?
Yeah.
I've listened to what TJ links to me.
How much is that?
I've only listened to it a bit, and I told them before, it's not for me for the most part, other than like the Life is Strange soundtracks, but it's not usually for me, but I'm looking forward to trying to broaden my horizons.
All right, well, you guys got that to look forward to. I'm sure Patricia is going to agree with everything everyone else says.
Yep.
So, all right, well, that has been the inaugural episode of the MP3 cast, and thank you for joining us.